for that. Okay, now the first question, you talked a little bit about it. The question is, what's your passion, your business idea or vision, and your plan on how to achieve it? And I'm going to ask you to do it in a funny kind of way. Imagine that you are at Shark Tank, you're in front of Mark Cuban, and you're going to tell him in your 1-minute elevator speech what your passion is, what's your idea, and why they should buy in. I'm going to start with you, Frank. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Mark Cuban, huh? I was thinking more Mr. Was it Mr. Perfect?
Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful. Okay,
Mr. Wonderful.
We could do that. Imagine Mr. Wonderful.
No, I'm good with Mark. Mark's a good guy. So look, Mark, I work with hardworking individuals and families who want to create a financial plan that allows them to freely live the lives they desire today and tomorrow, all while making things a little easier for future generations to come. We accomplish this by streamlining the financial planning process between key partners and clients, creating a plan that's measurable to the goals articulated by the client. Yeah, I'll stop there. I mean, there's more I can say, but I'll stop there.
To get started, can I ask you one follow-up? Is what's the best advice that you ever received before you went and started your business?
The best advice, just believe in yourself. There's never a bad time to kind of take a bet on you, right? So what you're passionate about, what makes you happy. And we all live in a world where we need each other, right? So what Lori brings to the table, I don't necessarily bring to the table. So I need a Lori, I need a Phil, I need an April. So believe in yourself, what you have and what you're passionate about, others will need, because that's just what we, obviously we depend on each other in this life. And again, just know that if someone else did it, if Charles E. Merrill did it and became Merrill Lynch, then Frank B. Simpson can do it and become the Simpson firm.
That's great. That's great. And I love what I heard you say is that you had to do it. You had to leave. You'd done it for a corporation for a while, and you just knew that you needed to go on your own. So that's exciting. April, now for you, and you've got a number of businesses. So tell us about your passion and how you've turned that into what you have today.
Sure. So first, I don't really follow passion. I follow purpose, because I think that passion is just limiting. And purpose really allows us to kind of dive deeply into the why are we here. And I struggled with that, for decades, growing up trying to figure out why am I really here? And I figured it out. I'm really here as a legacy of the people who came before me. So my purpose is to maximize my entire life and to make sure that I have impact on anybody that comes in my circle. And people that know me know you cannot come to me not understanding and not recognizing how to live your personal best. When I was a Fed, I worked for the FDIC as a financial crimes lawyer. I worked for Treasury as Chief Deputy Investigative Counsel, overseeing, financial white-collar crime frauds all across the country. And the first thing that I recognized is that I love my job, but I am so much more than the title of my day job. And I maximize that. And I said, hey, April, what else is there that you can do that helps you to expand on your purpose? And I said, I want to own stuff. And while I worked for the Feds, I owned everything, because I understood that my title did not stop me from having these other opportunities in my life. And I jumped on it and I ride that train until the end, because we got one shot at this life. And when I lay in my coffin or they sprinkle me in the ocean, whatever my child decides, I will die knowing that I did it. And I did not wait, and I did not talk myself out of things. And I jumped in there, and I didn't always get it right because I was pursuing my purpose and not my passion. So that meant that I understood that at the heart of it, at the end of it, things will be just fine.
Right. I love that. I love that. Purpose is a great driver. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Phil. And I know that there's a framework and a purpose behind every decision that we've made as a family. Can you share that with this group?
Yeah, absolutely. April, I love that purpose perspective that you just shared. But every time you say that when you were a Fed, you scare me. So I've just got to remember that you're talking about you worked in the federal. I just got, okay. But anyway, the purpose piece for us is we created a framework of 5 F's that we evaluate anything and everything around. And our first F is faith, second F is family, third is finances, fourth is fellowship, and then fifth is fitness. And so as we think through, what is the purpose for our work in the government, not in the government for me, but what is your purpose for the work in the government? What is your purpose for this potential opportunity that you want to consider? What is the differentiating factor, and what will you bring to the table that will make it that much better than anybody else? And so there is a purpose for each and every one of those those portals that you can go into. And for us, finances and faith and family, those purposes are just crystallized around what we pursue in terms of business idea or current compensation and job. And I'm going to hit the best advice one as well, Lori. And the best advice is what April talked about, is figuring out exactly what you want to own and start doing it while you have an income from somebody else. Let somebody else pay for your opportunity to pursue and evaluate, right? So while you're getting a paycheck from somebody else, evaluate and really refine your purpose. And then once you got it, know that you feel really good about it, take off. But let somebody else fund your exploratory research.
Lori, I'm good.
If you don't mind, I'll just piggyback up. Well, April, you got it.
No, go Frank, you first.
Well, to what Phil just mentioned, and Lori, I think you know the story. Like I mentioned that I had that conversation with a friend, but it came after a year, time that I spent with Merrill Lynch, but then a year just studying everything that Merrill Lynch did, because I knew that I was going to leave. So then I took a whole entire year, figured out, all right, how do things work behind the scenes? Like I understand the whole client acquisition part of it. I understand how to manage a person's money, how to create a financial plan for them, but I wanted to learn the operations. So I took a whole entire year studying the operations, asking questions. Then I said, you know what? Now is the time. I know enough. So that's perfect, Phil. You definitely, take that time to, again, get paid to kind of learn what you need to know, to gain the confidence to go out on your own.
So what I was going to add is, Phil, unfortunately, yes, the term Fed, you were interpreting it correctly. So I spent a lot of years prosecuting. So yeah, you felt that vibe. So I got to use better words so that, people don't start running from me. But I did. But you know what, as a white collar crimes prosecutor at the state level, at the federal level, my job was to investigate white collar crimes. White collar crimes simply means that these are frauds that are in the paperwork. It's not a fraud. It's not a crime that involves, someone got shot, you follow the forensics. This is actually reading documents. And it was in that moment when I had terabytes of data, tractor trailer loads of documents. And within those documents were business plans, were deals, were structured deals, were SEC filings. And then it dawned on me, as a Black woman, I really did not have the roadmap for understanding how to do business. I mean, yeah, you can Google anything, but what was in those documents were not found on Google. And people could not understand, why are you spending your lunchtime looking at documents instead of hanging out with us? And to me, I thought there's only a certain amount of days, a certain amount of hours in a day. And if you all want to have fun with your coworkers, have at it, because that's not for me. I have a bigger plan than pushing this clock in every day and clocking out every day. So I learned while I was on the job. During my lunch breaks, I actually remember when I decided to go into manufacturing, I decided that I didn't want to be a mom and pop, because I looked at the statistics and saw that mom and pop bakeries gross under $300,000, but manufacturers, they gross $2 million and upwards. And I decided I'm going to be on that side of the scale and not that side. But it really required me deciding how I would spend my day, how I would spend my commute time. In my car, I had a whole hour and a half where I got to be the CEO of my company. During my lunch break, I had a whole 1 hour to decide how I would be the CEO of my company. And on my way home, what do you think I did? I read, I made phone calls. And I remember in 2016, when my company, DC Sweet Potato Cake, launched into Starbucks. I was working for the FDIC. I got the text message on my phone, and I waited until my lunch break to walk across the street at the Starbucks and notice my baked good in all of the Starbucks in our region with my company name on there. I smiled and said, we did that. And then I went right back upstairs and I was a lawyer again for the feds. But do you understand the amount of time that I spent at the government learning what the government offered to me in order to build my company? Systems, documents, reading. And this phone right here, I wasn't on Facebook, people. I was researching my competitors, looking at ingredients and reading documents to understand how to get things done.
And April, I think that leads to that next question, that why capacity. So you made a lot of choices about your time and where you're spending your time. What kept you motivated? As there's got to be a time when there was a challenge and you thought, oh, maybe I want to relax a bit, or this is too hard, or how did you build that why big enough to keep you motivated through challenges?
Well, first, I always start with why not? Like, why not me? Because I'm the kind of person where if it's something that I want, I'm going to get it. And if it is something that is meant for me, I do the homework and I am disciplined to make sure that I put in the work so that I can get a yes. So it's never motivation that I've operated from, it's discipline. It's doing the same thing, making sure that my routine was regimented and made sure that I was focused enough those difficult times that I was able to get above those difficult times. But I was also clear in every one of my business plans, I have a blank page. And I remember my bank saying, you need to remove that blank page. I said, absolutely not, because that blank page is actually the entire business plan, because that is the stuff that you cannot guess. Those are the opportunities that you get when you are walking around talking about your business and people say, hey, I have an opportunity for you. It's not easy, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. But that's the fun part about it, because we convince ourselves that things are hard. We always do. We talk ourselves out of why we can't do something, and we sell ourselves the best violin stories ever. When we really look at it and we really think about it, it's the lack of discipline. It's the lack of follow through. And it is us being comfortable with waiting for someone to tell us no, so we can hang our hat on that and say, well, we tried. But for me, because the water fountains that I drink out of are never giving me a choice, because I've never had water hose in my face, and because no one ever told me that I couldn't be, because I don't listen to that, I couldn't understand why not me. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And for me, as a person who coaches executives and people who want to be in certain positions and move forward, it is usually the discipline that keeps them back. Because you need, they look at others that are where they want to be, but they don't really do the research to find out, how did that person get there?
But Lori, also understanding that your output may not resonate. Your resume may be fine, but the way that you communicate with people, the way that you receive feedback, and the way that you show up in the world may be the reason that you are not doing X or doing Y or doing Z. So it takes a lot of internal conversations with ourselves to say, I can do better.
Right. It starts with that belief that you can, and it's in an open mind to actually be open and listen to feedback, how you're showing up in the world, and what will it take for you to get to that place that you want to be. But thank you for that. Next question. We talk about marketing ourselves, and April, you talked a little bit about that. How do you market and build your career? I'm going to ask Phil to weigh in on that as our resident marketing expert. How would you advise this group to market themselves?
Resident marketing guru. The main thing is understanding the value that you bring to the table, right? So there is a lot of good advice that you can get from other people, but just understanding what is the value that you bring to the table. What is the differentiating factor? April's made it very clear that she brings a discipline, a focus, a different way of looking at it and thinking about it. I'm sorry, I just got muted, but I think we were trying to mute some of the other background. But yeah, so what is it that you bring to the table, and how do you articulate it quickly and succinctly? And that's what I think that April's just done very well.
Excuse me, I'm going to ask
Fatima,
if you,
I think it's Fatima.
Fatima, to mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, Phil.
Yeah, and that's the critical piece. So you market yourself by first truly understanding what is the differentiating factor that you bring to the table, and then clearly understanding how to get, top 3 things that you can talk about. Frank says he's extremely competitive. He's also very diligent about how he goes about evaluating and understanding what it takes to run the business he's in. April's very, very confident about her capabilities of really understanding, what do I need to make sure that I do to show the purpose and why partnering with me or working with me will lead to success. Somebody else told her to take out a blank paper out of her business plan. And what did she say? Hell no. Because I understand why it's in there, and I need to make sure you understand why it's in there. So again, marketing yourself is really about understanding what are your differentiating assets. Again, it's just like I do on a daily basis. AAA's differentiating assets are peace of mind, right? We're always going to be there. That you can count on us when you call us. What's yours? What is that 1, 2, 3 critical assets that you possess that are they may not be unique to you, but you truly do connect completely with them. And so you have to be able to articulate that. And why is it beneficial for whoever's working with you or whatever you're working on? Those assets will make sure that you're successful.
Perfect. So we've got belief in ourselves, we've got market ourselves, and now how do we fund this effort? Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you and talk about what's that framework for accessing and raising capital.
Sure. Before I go there really quick, I just wanted to add one thing, Phil, and maybe you can elaborate on this if you can, but just the importance of having a brand and a brand story, right? So, I mean, I look at April and like part of experiencing April's brands is also experiencing her personality, right? So like in my industry, like it's predicated on trust, right? But, let's just be honest, like when you look at a 6'5", 240-pound Black male, that's not the first person that you think about trusting in American, social structure. So like for me in marketing my business, like you have to make sure that one, when you see the Simpson firm, like we're delivering on our brand promise, what that is, right? Connecting all of your financial services across, one entity and delivering a financial plan that will allow you to pursue the thing that's most important to you. So whenever our clients reach out to us, like it always comes back to what's important to you, what's the plan, because that's our promise to them. So I don't know, Phil, if you wanted to kind of just touch on like the importance of having, a brand, right? So in my case, like I have my own brand, Frank Simpson, the brand to the client, and also like the firm has to have a brand that it delivers. And I know April does a great job at that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I need to add much to that other than to say that, yeah, you're 100% right. There's the personal brand as you're evaluating going into something. And then once you establish whatever that business is, there is what you say and what you do as follow-up, right? So what you say is the promise, we're going to do this, you can trust us, all those things, and delivering on that consistently at each and every point of contact, touch point with the consumer, touch point in media, delivering on that is what then solidifies that brand position and creates that level of trust and expectation, clear expectation of the fact that you're going to deliver on that.
Hey, Lori, can I add just a couple of points of value? Because I know we have like lots of federal workers and government workers still on a call. So let's just talk about marketing while you're at work. Because I was up against, and I'm speaking from real experience as a person who had an entire manufacturing company while I worked at the Feds 9 to 5 or 6 to 3, whatever time. I remember a time in 2016, maybe, I was working for a very conservative agency, and I was a lawyer for them. And I was on the front page of the Washington Post style section, which is a coveted section. How she grew and built $1 million bakery, whatever. And that next Monday, because it came out on a Saturday, underneath my door, someone had put a copy of that newspaper and they put a bullseye around it and said ethical or not, and they slid it underneath my door. Here's the deal. Absolutely, was it ethical, but can your coworkers make a nightmare for you if they know that you are growing your company? So at that moment, I knew that I had to grow quickly, smarter, and a little bit quieter. So the brand was less about me, more focused on the product itself, and I had to figure out how to grow it. So I grew it in grocery because grocery does not require that whole online marketing, because grocery just is a different monster when it comes to how your company shows up and how it should be branded. One thing that I did was I read my ethics rules. I went and I talked with my ethics officer so that when you have those coworkers or colleagues that have something because they are just miserable, you are already covered, right? And I also made sure that whatever I did not conflict with the federal government. No confliction. I would not take contracts from anything that involved the federal government. And I had every cafeteria, every Aramark in the world saying, can we get your products? But because they serviced the agency where I was, I said, absolutely no. Could I have? Possibly. But would it have been worth me having to lose my income over such a small contract? The other part that I wanted to kind of just talk with you about on the finance side, again, if you work for an agency such as me, I work for the FDIC, and our job was to regulate, investigate, and close down financial institutions. Well, what would it look like me having an active investigation at a bank, and then I'm going to apply for a loan there? Not that I couldn't, but would it really pass the front of the Washington Post page muster? The answer was absolutely not. So as you are growing your companies, while you are on government time, do not use your government phone. Use your personal phone. And do understand that if you are subject to investigation, that's the first thing that they are looking at. Watch what you're Googling online, right? From your government laptop, from your government desktop, but also be smart about the way that you market your company. Because honestly, if you are selling something that will be embarrassing, then your employer may have an opportunity to step in and say, you can't do that. Not that they can, but they could make your life quite miserable, because we all know how people don't want you there. They'll focus on something else that has nothing to do with what it is that you're doing in order to get you out. So be smart with it. And marketing does not always mean naming something after yourself and putting your face forward. You could be very quiet with your marketing and kill. Those are just my couple of points as a Fed who had to actually walk through that process very carefully.
That's great advice, Mika. I'm sorry, great advice, April. And as an HR executive who has managed that for people, I think that it's great advice, and as open and as upfront you can be with your leadership and ensuring that you understand the rules and the guidelines, your ethics of your company. That's really important. Great advice. Any other comments before we move back to Frank on finances? Anybody else? All right, Frank.
Thank you, Lori. So like I get this question all the time, or I get comments related to, access to capital. I mean, let's just be honest, in communities of color, like we don't have access to capital the same way other communities do when you're trying to go start a business. In fact, I think I read a study that said that even when things are equal, like we walk into a bank, someone else walks into a bank, like by and large, we still don't get that trust, right? Like we don't know if that business is going to be successful or not. So some of the large institutions don't want to lend money in that direction. So what I often tell people is that you just got to start at home. You got to figure out like what ways you can get this done, right? So the first and foremost is like go to your friends and family. Like, well, let's back it up. So when you're thinking about your business idea, not all businesses require a lot of capital to start. So like, Lori sits on the board for an organization with Robert Smith, and I heard Robert Smith was the richest Black man in the country until Kanye West claimed that he is. And he said, in today's world, we all have a computer in our hand, and the most valuable resource we have is the ability to think of an idea that we could then go to someone to program and then turn that into cash. And I'm like, man, that's so smart. Like, how much does it take for us to think of a business idea or some solution that we can then turn into an app and then try to scale that by getting a bunch of users and selling it to a company? Like you can literally make a ton of cash doing a business that require little to no capital. So I think sometimes it starts with thinking of an idea that requires not a lot of capital to start. But if you want to get into a capital intensive business, the first place is to go to your friends and family. Like those are going to be the primary funders of your business, or someone that supports your idea. The second place, a lot of folks think, well, I'll just go into the bank, put on my suit or put on my nice dress or, business attire and go into a bank. Well, normally that doesn't work. A bank is going to want to see 2 years financials before they even consider giving you a loan, unless you just have a great relationship with the vice president of lending. You're not going to get that loan unless you have 2 years financially supported. And the other caveat is if you're a doctor or a lawyer, or if you're starting, I'm sorry, you don't have to be a doctor to start a medical practice. You can start a medical practice and have doctors work for you. Often medical practices get loans because they know that we have to go to get obviously our health in line. So but more than that, you don't have 2 years financials, the bank isn't looking in your direction. When you get to a point where you've had the business for 2 years, you want to go to a bank, don't go to your big bank. So Bank of America, they got a risk profile that they're looking at. If you don't fit within that risk profile, they're not going to take the deal. Wells Fargo is the same. Citi, Chase, Cap, you name it, all those guys got different priorities. Small and mid-sized banks hold 21% of bank assets, but they account for 54% of all credit provided to small businesses. So if you guys really think about that, so go to your, in this area, I guess Old Line Bank, which just sold to, I forget the name from from West Virginia that they sold to, but try to go to one of your community banks, 1, 2, 3 branches. You can go in, make a relationship with the decision makers, have them really come experience, your business, and really buy into being a sponsor supporter of what you're trying to accomplish. And then, if for some reason the banks don't want to give you, access to capital, you always have, small business loans, credit cards, line of credit, whether that's a personal line of credit, whether that's a home equity line of credit. I mean, most businesses, initially are financed from a home equity line of credit. Like in this area, like if you have $100,000, $200,000 in, equity in your house, pull out 50,000 of that and bet on yourself. Obviously talk with a financial advisor first, make sure you understand the risk that's associated with that. But that's kind of the places to go to try to access that capital.
Frank, what's your response to those listening? Because I know the first thing that I get asked is, should I touch my 401k in order to fund my business? What's your response to that?
Great question, actually. And that's one that I missed, because some folks don't realize that you can do something that's called the self-directed IRA as well. So the whole idea of buying stocks and bonds or Apple or whatever inside of your IRA, you can actually buy shares in your own company within your IRA as well and use your retirement savings to kind of fund your business. I think it's the same thing, right? Like if you really believe in what you're doing, like, again, bet on yourself. Like if I'm going to bet on Elon Musk, I'm going to bet on Steve Jobs or any of these other guys. Like I'm going to take a shot at what I'm going to do, and hopefully it hits. And if it doesn't, you know what, that's just a calculated risk I'm willing to take. But I think if that's your only choice and you want to follow your passion, you want to follow your purpose, I think, that's what you do. Because ultimately, like not everything you do is going to be successful, right? Like, again, I told you guys in the beginning, I'm an athlete. So you don't always win every game that you play. Sometimes losing is a part of the process. Go back, evaluate what went wrong, and, try again. So I think this, I have an MBA in finance from the University of Delaware. So a part of our MBA studies, we got to do all of these case studies from Harvard Business School. And one that comes to mind right now is like 409. Like 409 is because 408 recipes of trying to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish failed. And the 409th one was the one that they got right. So it's okay to take your IRA and, if you're at the end of if you're near retirement, of course, you want to be smart about that and not use all of it. But if you're young and you want to make a transition and got some cash tucked away, I would absolutely say bet on yourself.
Wait, can I throw in 2 points?
I was just handing it over to you, April.
Okay, so a couple things that you guys can do now. first, before you ask your friends and family, look at the way that you're spending your own personal money. I cannot tell you how many times people ask me if I could invest in their company, and their cars and their purses look better than anything that I could ever imagine paying for. And the first thing I say is, why don't you sell that stuff? And what do you think the answer is? Oh, hell no, then you won't get my money. The other part is, you're laughing, Phil, because you know what I'm talking about. The other part is study financial statements, because you have to be able to understand the language of money and what the banks are looking for. So on your downtime, start YouTubing videos, your balance sheet, your P&L, your cash flow statements. If none of that makes sense to you, then you are absolutely not ready to go into business, because business is not just about doing something pretty and cute and selling a service that you think people want. You have to address all aspects of the business. Pay professionals for what their service is. You cannot use 1-800-Dollar-Friend and think that you are going to get great advice. The same way that you are looking for free information, it's only free. Information has to be specific to your needs. So you're going to need to hire that CPA, even if you just sit down with them for an hour. You want to sit down with your financial advisor, even if it's for an hour, your business lawyer, even if it's for an hour. Pay for the cost of being in business, because it makes a difference in terms of the way that your business's foundation starts. If it has holes in it, it will sink. And last but not least, one thing that kills me as a business lawyer is when people of color believe that people owe them. I don't know if you guys have gotten the message, but America's not giving us anything. We have to demonstrate that we too can compete at the same level. Although it's not a level and a fair playing ground, the truth is that we still have to compete at that level. So that means make friends that don't look like you, that don't share the same color, because there are so many people who want your services. They want your product, and no, they do not look like you. And understand that part of being in business is making sure that your revenues are there and that you have healthy profit margins. Don't just focus on selling to Blacks. Everyone should want your product. Unless you are selling something that is super specific to Black people, recognize that your product can be used by anyone. So do not limit your money. All money is green and silver.
So I do one follow-up question that, how did you start to expand your network of people, April? So how did you expand that? How did you build those set of advisors? I've often called it my counsel, your internal counsel, your CPA, your advisors. How did you build that?
Intentionally. So I don't do a whole bunch of networking, because I think passing out my card, it really doesn't do much. So I started figuring out who the players were, and I picked up the phone and called and said, hey, my name is April. I'm looking at growing a company. Can I just take 10 minutes of your time to understand where I should start? And people started sharing, but I also grew small and I grew smart. So in growing small, we relied on our customers to tell our story, and then our customers would love who we are. So then they would introduce us to other people. Hey, I know a banker. Hey, I know an insurance company. And then it just started growing, right? So it was nothing that was really planned. It was just something that was understood. Not to focus on the volume of people that we have around our company, but the quality of people that we have around our company. But we also held people accountable. Our customers were held accountable for our growth. You can't say, oh, we want another Black business, and you don't show up. You can't say, hey, can we take a picture with you? And you haven't purchased our product in 2 years, right? But even when we have issues with our company, because we do, we have supply issues. I remember in November, we couldn't even get cream cheese, and the majority of our products are made from cream cheese. And because we are good to people, because we are good to our vendors, because our suppliers love us, we have direct relationships with them. Our products are in Safeway, Wegmans, Nordstrom, QVC. During the pandemic, I picked up the phone and I called our buyer. They don't pick up the phone, and I said, don't let us fail. And they said, we absolutely adore your company because you guys are a nice company. We hear that all the time, a nice company, which is dog whistling for people only want to do business with people that they like. And they want you to succeed because they like you, unless you are in an industry where there is a need for you, because you don't need it. Oxygen, you need it. So I just, advise people to make sure that the people that are around your company and that you're doing business with, they actually like you, and that you make requests of them in order for them to help you grow. but also be ready to do that in exchange for them
In
as well.
exchange. You know, there's nothing that's more important than relationship and reputation. It sounds like as your company has grown, how did you bring on talent and people that had those same set of values and that reflected the brand that you had built personally for your company?
What you put out is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
You have toxic characteristics, you will receive toxic type of people. We are a very open company. We love to have fun. We take care of each other and we take care of our customers. And when you walk into our doors, you feel that. So people have a sense of belonging, so they know whether or not they fit. Oh, they know, because they'll come in and I ask the question, what's your personal life like? How do you treat people? What makes you mad? And it comes out, because if you just focus on engaging in terms of who the people are, then the truth about how they show up in the world comes out easily. And it's in the small tells. I mean, you know how it goes. When people show you who they are, you really got to believe it. But it's not always going to be this large demonstration of who they are. It's in the nuances. It's in the pauses. It's in the eyes. It's in the shoulders. And you can just tell after a while, when you build a culture for your organization, you know what doesn't work.
Right.
It gets to be really, really, really simple, and it becomes a really quick call.
Which is good that you model it yourself. Working in corporations, I've seen so many executives who want a team that looks a certain way, but they don't act that way. And that has always been my coaching is that you are going to get what you give. And so you want a team that acts a certain way, you need to role model that. So great advice. I'm going to go to the chat. Is there, Takia, a question for the chat that we want to bring forward?
Hi, yes, I'm not sure if you were able to answer. We had a question from Lauren Merritt Taylor. 1 second, let me scroll up.
Okay, let's get back up. So Lauren, and I think this would be for April. Lauren had a question that she said, when establishing your business, I was told you have to figure out what the problem is and how you will solve that problem differently than others for your clients. How did you go about doing that? Let's start with April.
So we are a baked goods manufacturer, right? I mean, how many bakeries do you know? It's 1,000 of them, and we have to compete against Hostess and all of the other major bakery companies. So guess what? We wanted to play in the bakery game, but we had to figure out how we would enter an already crowded market. So we enter it, and there are all sorts of ways. You could sell the same vanilla cupcake, but you do something so different. The way that it looks could be enough for the market to respond to. But I always say that is short term. If you're looking at the long-term game, then you are going to change the market. Our bakery bakes goods from sweet potatoes. We have made an entire category of baked goods that's outside of a sweet potato pie. It's a sweet potato cake. So when you think about something like this, you can only come and get it from us. I mean, at least the best. And we've had some people try and knock us off, and they have absolutely failed because we have spent years, countless years, disciplining our recipes so that every time a person tries our product, they know exactly where it came from, right? There is a crowded market for services, right? So we, as a lawyer, right, because I am a business lawyer, you can find a business lawyer on any corner. Like I work right here on K Street. It's 1,000 of us. But what makes us unique is what makes us unique. I don't think that everyone is going to be for everybody. It's also recognizing that there's enough space in the market for you. You just got to find your way in it. And whether it's because you have outstanding service, whether it's because you are automated and people prefer automated ways of dealing business, or whether you find a small niche that you focus on, there's always room, but you just have to be smart enough to know how to get in and then stay in. Easy to start a business, harder to stay in business.
No, but the idea of sweet potatoes, was that research? Was that an idea? Was it something? How did you come to start there?
So good question. So I was prosecuting in Prince George's County real estate and mortgage fraud, and I was turning companies around because during the day, the victims were everyday homeowners in Prince George's County and across the state of Maryland. They were losing their homes. Y'all remember the great mortgage meltdown, and the majority of them were men because they were the providers, and the majority of them were entrepreneurs. So during the day, I would represent them as a prosecutor, and at night, I would be their business lawyer, turning their companies around. This company came to me back in 2008 because the owner of the company just could not turn the company around. No matter what he did, something would happen. So I spent time as a lawyer giving free hours, hundreds of hours to the company, and they just couldn't do it. And their revenues were about $75,000 a year. And I remember when they had a third eviction, and I said, that's enough. I called the landlord and said, please don't evict them. And she said, why would I not? I said, because I know how to turn companies around. And I had to prove to her that I knew how to turn companies around. And the way that I proved it was she simply Googled my information and saw that I really take on banks. And she gave us a chance so long as I became owner of the company. At the time, I was a single mom, still am, raising my son, prosecuting fraud all across the state and then nationally. And then I had this small bakery that I had to figure out how to grow. And the first thing that I did was I had to look at what the challenges were in the company, which were inconsistent product, not showing up, you know, customers that were upset, losing contracts. So I gave away so much cake. We did not focus on profit. We focused on the purpose of the company, which was to build a strong company that had great profits. You see the difference? And in less than a year of owning the company, I vowed to create a manufacturing company. And then it was after that year, I decided that we would go big, because every morning I would go to Starbucks and eat the same thing, get me a cup of coffee and eat the lemon pound cake. And at some point I said, why can't this be me? Why can't this be us? So I made it happen. I made all these calls to Starbucks and everybody told me no. And I said, well, who are they to tell me no? Because obviously whoever is choosing isn't choosing the right baked goods. So I found the, well, I didn't find, but I figured out the email of the CEO, Howard Schultz, and I sent him a personal email. And within 1 hour, he answered. And he said, I would love to try your baked goods. And at the time I paid my mortgage, I had no more money. I put the rest into the business. I paid my son's tuition, and I had a check coming from the Prince George's County State's Attorney's Office, and I knew what the numbers were. But instead of looking at that as a challenge, I couldn't figure out how to ship product to Seattle, Washington, where Starbucks was located. So I had about $400 in my bank account, and there was one ticket, round trip ticket left to Seattle, Washington. It was for $750. And there was one-way ticket for $350. And I took that one-way ticket, couldn't figure out how I was going to get home, loaded up me and the sweet potato cakes, and I got to Starbucks and I delivered it, and I walked out with a contract.
Oh my goodness.
Couldn't figure out how to fulfill it.
But you got it. Like, but what a great story. It sounds
That's
like
right.
what Frank said. You made a bet on yourself. You saw an opportunity and you took a leap. And I would say that as you took a leap, you knew that you had that discipline and the stick-to-itiveness to make it work. So that's
but
exciting.
also the attitude was, you can't tell me what works best for me.
That's right.
That's confidence there, right?
That
And
is,
then when somebody goes,
confidence.
and
I would bet that
okay,
that's not the first time that showed up, April. I'm thinking like
for
little
some
April
reason,
somewhere. That
for some reason,
that's
I
a
don't.
personality type that you have.
Right.
We're coming close to the end. Phil, I want to turn it over to you. I know right now you're working in a corporate position, but have invested in several different areas. How do you think about taking your personal money and starting to make money with that money now, even as you're in your job?
Yeah, I got to catch my breath though first. I mean, wow, April, thanks for sharing that story. That's a very inspirational story, and again, it echoes the entrepreneur stories that I've heard before of the real successful entrepreneurs, the folks who know their purpose and know when to make that bet. And you made that bet on yourself. That's awesome. You know, the piece that I'm working through is understanding the financials around what do I need for my home? What do I need to feel good about taking that leap of faith? And I'm fortunate enough to have, you know, or have had dual income, and then until recently, and then bridging that gap to now have my wife Lori be able to go out and start down the entrepreneur path, and me to continue to work down the real estate entrepreneur path. And then April talked about it before, getting the right resources tapped in, right? And the right resources on this call, Frank Simpson, getting a financial consultant and a financial advisor, make sure that someone else is looking at my numbers, make sure I understand what type of flexibility I have. And then, you know, again, having that purpose in mind of what I really want to do and go after it. So I'm in that part of the equation right now, Lori, as you well know, and you know as well, Frank. And those are the steps that I think are critical, is just kind of understanding what's your level of risk you're willing to take, you know, and what's your current financial structure and situations. What type of sacrifices are you willing to make? April talked about, you know, different expensive cars and other things that people have that they aren't willing to give up, and coming to her for investment in their company. Well, you've just giving they've just provided some type of perspective around their brand to April, that April then has to question whether or not they have the right prioritization of how they're going to invest the money that she's going to provide if she's investing in their company. Mm-hmm. So what type of decisions are you willing to make? And really turning it back to myself, what type of decisions am I willing to make? What type of sacrifices in where I am financially, and what type of assets I have versus what type of investing I want to make for the future that I want to have in the entrepreneurial path that I want to take. So that's where I am in that process. And, you know, I look forward, I am very happy to have been a part of this panel and to be able to hear April and all that awesome stuff that she's gone through, and all that awesome insight, as well as what I get from Frank, you know, folks that have gone the path before. And that's one other thing that I would just say quickly is, you know, finding the folks who've been there and doing the things that you want to do. April, I'm sure that the people that you reached out to have those real estate conversations, or they have those conversations around retail and what are the things that they did. When you had those conversations, you picked people who were kind of where you wanted to be, versus you identify the few folks that really thought you could learn from. That's what I would recommend, is make sure you have that nice, good advisory council of people who are where you want to be.
And piggybacking on that, you'd be surprised how many people are excited and happy and want to share their story with you. So when you reach out to someone and say, I'm really impressed by what you've done, you're further ahead in this journey than I am, and I would love to take a few minutes, have a few minutes of your time to ask some questions. And one recommendation I have is that when you get to the end, always turn that around and say, what can I do for you? And be real about it. And if there's something that you can do for them, be willing to do that, and you will have somebody that's a supporter and a connection for life. Really, really good. We're coming to the end. Frank, I'm going to give you a moment to chime in there. Any other advice or points that you want to bring?
I don't think I can add much more value than
That's good. No, it's been good. This is really rich.
Said.
I'm looking, yeah, good things.
But yeah, I think you know, most of what we heard today is just, you know, kind of like have your purpose, right? Like believe in yourself, you know, do the homework, like figure out what it takes to be successful in the business. If you can't find the information as Phil just alluded to, like find someone who's already did it, right? Like someone already created the roadmap. Like just figure out what they've done and try to take it to the next level, do it better.
That's good. I do have one last question I'd like to hear from each of you. As you start to go out to your friends and family and you're sharing your vision and your why and what you're going to do, what you want to do, some of them even lovingly, out of care for you, may try to discourage you on your dream. How do you handle that? Let me start with you, Frank.
So I think I told you guys at the front of the webinar, like the first person I went to and I told that I was going to be leaving, you know, Merrill Lynch to kind of start my own thing. And he kind of questioned, like, are you sure you're making the right call? Again, like, it's all about having a process, right? When you have a process, a repeatable process that you can measure outcomes, right? The reason why athletic teams practice 6 days a week is because they want things to become muscle memory, so that when it's game time, you don't have to rely on like what to do, right? Like we've been here before. Like I know exactly how to perform in this situation. So just be confident in the work that you've done. Like I took a year before I left Merrill to figure out like how to operate the business. Like I felt really comfortable about that. So I had a process that I was going to implement, and then I was going to be okay with the outcome. Like if I didn't go as far as I thought I could go, like I was going to be okay with that. Then I'll just go seek additional information on how to become better and continue my journey on where I needed to get my company to where I wanted it to be. So I'll just be comfortable in the process and the plan that you have and work the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it does remind me funny story when Phil and I told Frank, who is our advisor, that I was going to retire. He said, are you sure? He said just from a standpoint of the dual income, but no, we appreciate it. He's a great supporter of ours. And we're coming to the end. I promised Jerome that I'd hand it back to him with 2 minutes. So thank you to this panel. Thank you for all the questions in the chat, and I'm going to hand it back over to Jerome.
Thank you, Lori. And I want to give special thanks to our panel today for sharing this awesome information that should be very beneficial to us all, especially if we're thinking about going into business. I also want to thank our OPM team for coordinating this informative event. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us today for this financial event. We look forward to providing you more interesting and exciting events in the future. Our goal is to continue to inform and enlighten big members, federal employees, and others about financial issues and many other significant topics. So we look forward to engaging with you again soon. If you'd like to find out more about the OPM Big chapter, or if you'd like to join us, please reach out to us. Our contact information is listed in the chat. So we look forward to hearing from you. If there's something that you wanted to ask that we didn't get to, didn't get to your question today, please let us know. We'll follow up with you. But with that, thank you again. And this will conclude our session.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.